All right. All right. So let's just pray. Um, Father, we thank you for today. We give you praise and honor. We thank you, Lord, for this class. I pray, Lord, for every person and inclusive of myself, that, Lord, may you grant us understanding. Help us, Lord, to be able, Lord, to understand everything that we shall learn. We commit this class unto your holy hands, and we commit every person that will join. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. Okay. So, okay, just one more time. Patience, you can hear me, right? Everybody can hear me, I believe.
I can hear you.
All right, because all I have is my screen. So if you want to say something, just unmute your mic and you'll be able to ask me if there's any question or stuff. All right, so when you're looking at national income, remember macroeconomics studies the whole economy. So in microeconomics, you look at individuals. How does one firm make profits? You are looking at what determines the decisions by this firm. How do individuals work and all those things. So when individuals work, when governments spend money, when firms make profits and all these things, you bring all their monies together and now you call that national income. So from the word national, we're simply looking at all the incomes that are accrued within a period of time, which is mainly per year. All right. And then you look at that income and you call that the GDP. But the question we're having today is, how do you determine this national income? And that's what this slide we're going to do today is all about. So I believe there's a second slide that I think we need to look at as well. But I thought on picking out on this one, I think we'll continue after your quiz. So we'll do this one today, then tomorrow as well, we'll do the other one. Okay. So now when we're looking at national income, remember we did the schools of thoughts. We had the monetarist. We also had the classicals. But what we consider mainly under national income, we pick on the Keynes determination of national income. And remember, Keynes advocated for government intervention into the economy. The government should decide, all right? And the government comes to decide. This is how Keynes says national income is to be determined. So there are four major components of national income according to Keynes. So the first one is consumption, all right? So this is our first component. And the second component is government purchases or government expenditure. The third one is investment. And the fourth one is expenditures on foreign products, which is imports and the sales of products to other countries, which are exports. So now when we are looking at national income, so I'll go through each and every one of these, but I believe that national income, trust me, the moment that you get to understand what consumption is, all these others don't have a lot. All right. The main thing is on consumption. All right. But to look at the definition for consumption, you're simply looking at the goods, the amount of money that was spent by households on goods and services. When we talk about households, you're simply looking at individuals in the country. All right. So these households, you and me, when we get to spend money on anything, all right, be it shoes, food, whatever thing that you can buy in the economy, is captured under what is known as consumption. So when you talk about consumption, we're not only talking about food. It can be consumption of anything, whatever thing that you buy, a good or a service. All right, you capture that, you call it a spending by household. So, for example, the tuition fees that you spend, the money that you buy in groceries, whatever thing that you spend on as an individual. So just the amount of money that is spent by households, right, on goods and services is captured and recorded under what is known as what? Consumption. Now, when it comes to these goods that we're talking about, they are durable goods and non-durable goods. Now, durable goods, these are just goods that last for more than 3 years. All right. Then if not that, then it's called a non-durable good or a service. All right. So we'll look at government purchases. You're simply just looking at the amounts of money that government spends on goods and services. Then when we talk about investment, we're talking about money. All right. Money that is used by firms, all right, to purchase goods and services. Okay, so a firm can go ahead and buy, for example, a laptop. A firm can go and buy a machine. So all those monies that the firm is spending is captured under what is known as investment. Then you have government, you have expenditure on foreign products, which is imports. So when you talk about imports, you are not looking at products, you are focusing on money. So when you say imports, you're simply talking about money, all right, that you have spent on foreign products. Then we talk about exports, we are simply talking or referring about money that we receive after selling a good product to the outside, to the other countries. So exports and imports are simply talking about money. So now I believe to say you know about gross income and net income. From your pay, I believe you have your gross and you also have your net. So if you're talking about gross income, for example, or gross salary, is what the company says they'll be giving you. The net income or net salary is after you remove all the deductions, isn't it? So when we come to look at this one, NX, this refers to net exports. So now remember, net, it means you have removed something. So from exports, you remove imports, it becomes known as what? Net exports, and that is what you're having there as the NX. All right. So let us just quickly run through what these components are. All right. Okay. Okay, let me just come here. All right. So let us look at what consumption really is. And I want you to understand all these simple concepts so that the calculations will be very easy for you. I hope that I'll be very uh, quick and I'll be able to capture your understanding as well. So we have defined consumption as the spendings that are done by households on goods and services, isn't it? So now there's something now, when you look at the consumption function, you're looking at what determines consumption. All right. So what are some of the things that determine consumption? So we capture everything. If you want to see how consumption is determined, you need to study what is known as what? A consumption function. So this right here, what we have is what is called a consumption function. And you must understand all these, what A is, what B is, and what Y is. So our A, this A here, represents what is known as autonomous consumption. Now, by definition, autonomous consumption, this is just consumption that does not depend on the level of income. All right. So we don't care how much money we have, we still make this expenditure. For example, I would give you a family can say we are broke, we don't have money. But one way or the other, if there's a funeral, there's a way that money in the family shows up, isn't it? Or let's say, for example, the way that you are at school, then you find that one of your boys or one of your relatives is going to the university. One of the needs and one of the things that you need is a laptop. Now you buy a laptop, that amount of money that you're spending to purchase a laptop is not because money has shown up. It's not because you're having more money in the family, no, but it's because of university. So if any spending is done by households and it has not been influenced by the level of income, it is captured under what is known as what? Autonomous consumption. So this autonomous consumption just represents all other factors that cause consumption to change apart from what? Income. All right. So when you see this parameter A, it is representing all things that can determine what? Consumption apart from income. So for example, I'll ask you, what are some of the things that determine consumption? What causes you to spend money on goods and services? Well, you can say, for example, what causes you to spend money on airtime or on bundles? You say, well, probably because of school, or maybe because I need to catch up on things, or maybe this and stuff, right? So all those reasons, you're having them and it's causing you to spend money. But if, for example, you start working or the way that you're working, and then your boss decides to raise your pay, they start giving you more money. Well, you see, I have more money now, and it means I can spend more money. So it means now you start spending on goods and services more. Why? Because your income has increased. So that aspect of consumption is being influenced by what? By income, and it is captured by this, what I've highlighted here. So the BY there represents what is known as induced consumption. Induced means influenced, isn't it? Remember in our introduction, we did what was called, we had dependent variables and independent variables, right? So one of the factors, okay, that consumption is dependent on is this by here, which is called induced consumption. So induced consumption there, just it shows us the part of consumption that is influenced by income, whereas the A here shows us what? Any other factor that determines consumption apart from what? Income. It is captured under this. So now you can see that we have a plus sign here. It's a positive sign, isn't it? So what can we say? This Y here is representing income. Then this B is representing the marginal propensity to what? To consume. All right. Now I want you to see something here. If our Y is 0, this function will be equal to what? Can I have patience? Can you try it out? You've seen here we have C is equal to A plus BY, isn't it? So if we put a 0 where there is Y, what do you think this equation now will be equal to? Patience, can you try it out? Okay, so because I can't see if you guys,
It's gonna be
sorry,
C.
it's gonna be what?
It's going to be C is equal to A.
C is equal to A, right? Because this part where there is by, when there's y, any number multiplied by 0 will just be 0, isn't it? So you're only going to remain with what? A. So which also gives us now another definition of what we can call this autonomous consumption. Autonomous consumption, this is consumption that does not depend on the level of what? Income. Or we can say autonomous consumption is simply consumption when income is what? Is 0. So when your income is 0, the level of consumption that you're going to have will be called what? Autonomous consumption. So this now brings us whatever you're going to, if they ask you calculate autonomous consumption, it means you only capture this. It means you put wherever you're going to see Y in any form of equation, just put 0. Whatever you remain with is what is called what? Autonomous consumption. So it is consumption when income is 0. I hope that is understood. All right. So we are done with the part of autonomous. So whenever I even tell you, I give you anything or I give you some equations and I ask you calculate autonomous consumption, just put wherever there is Y, put 0. Whatever you're going to remain with, that's what is known as what? Autonomous spending, autonomous consumption. I hope that is okay. Now, quickly, I want us now to move on to this induced part. So remember the first part is called what? Autonomous consumption. Now we move on to this second part. This second part now shows us the consumption that is now dependent on income. Now, this consumption that's dependent on income is called induced consumption, meaning it is being influenced by income. Now, there's a statement right here in front that says what? That consumption is assumed to vary directly with income. So meaning consumption has a positive what? Relationship with income. Meaning when income increases, consumption also increases. That's the reason why we are having a plus sign here. Meaning when our income increases, there is a positive relationship between what? Between C, the consumption, and the Y. Okay. So you can see that there the C is representing consumption, the Y is representing our income. So from this, we can see that the consumption line is just a straight line. Okay. And I'll show you just the diagram, I think, in the slides to come. Now let us look at this parameter now, I think that I've not spoken about. So this Y, please, it just represents income. Huh? So if your income is 10 quarter or whatever, it is the Y. But now we have this variable here called the B parameter. So what is this B? This B is what is known as the marginal propensity to consume, or MPC. Now, you know that every, you'd understand that in every line that you'd have, we are going to have a slope of the line, the gradient of the line. So if you have, for example, the consumption function, the gradient of that consumption function is known as what? The MPC. So every line that you might have, Now, when you're calculating the gradient of every line, I think you remember in grade 12, would say the gradient m is equal to what? Would say y2 minus y1, right? Over x2 minus x1, isn't it? So that's the formula for the gradient, isn't it? So we're talking about the MPC. Whenever you hear in economics anything to do with marginal, it means it is a slope of a certain line. So the marginal propensity to consume is the slope of this equation that we have here. The C is equal to BY. So when you're calculating the gradient, you're calculating the what? The MPC. Hope that is okay. So now how do you calculate the gradient of any line? It is Y, it is M, which is the MPC, the gradient. M, the gradient, is equal to what? Change in Y over change in X, isn't it? Now, when you're given the consumption function on the Y-axis, okay, so I just want you to draw, I hope you're having a book or something. All right, I just want you to draw the X or Y plane. Okay, just draw the X or Y plane right now. Then on the Y-axis, I want you to put consumption. Then on the X-axis, I want you to put income. Then you can put in brackets, income is being represented by Y, consumption is being represented by what? By C. Now, we know that the gradient is equal to what? Change in Y over change in X, right? Now, where there's change in Y, what do we have now? On the Y-axis, we're having consumption, isn't it? So you put change in C, all right? So you write it like this. It will be change in C divided by what? The change in Y. But all the concept, everything is just what we learned in grade 12. It is the same gradient. But you can see that on the Y-axis now, instead of putting change in Y, we're putting change in C because that's what is representing the Y-axis. Then on the X-axis, we are having the change in what? In Y. Why? Because Y is just representing what? Income. And income is what is on the X-axis. So that's why we're saying change in what? In Y. So I hope we're getting how this MPC is coming about. All right. Do you have any question? Sydney, is everything okay?
Yes, so far everything seems to be okay on my side. Thank
So
you.
please, the MPC is just the what? So you can see that the change in Y denotes the change in what? In income, whereas the change in C denotes the change in what? Consumption. So therefore, since the MPC is the gradient of this line, right? To find the MPC, we're just going to say change in MPC is equal to what? In grade 12, remember? Change in Y over change in X. But what is on our Y-axis? We are having consumption. On our X-axis, what's there? We are having income, which is the change in Y. All right. So remember how we used to calculate? It means we need 2 points, right? Change in this over change in this. Now, because I do not have, okay, let me see the next slide if we have something to calculate. All right. Since we don't have it here, so let me just quickly give you an example. I just want you to write this down quickly. If income increases from 300 to 400, if income increases from 300 to 400, so if income increases from 300 to 400, consumption also increases. Okay, so I said the income increases, right? So consumption also increases from 50 to 100. Consumption increases from 50 to 100. Calculate the MPC. So remember, calculating the MPC, we should have 2 points, right? So the change in C here just represents your current consumption minus your initial consumption, divided by your current income minus your initial income. So can you just try to calculate that? All right. So I hope we've all gotten it. Sydney, can you just read for me what I've just said? I said if income increases from what?
If income increases from 300 to 400, consumption also increases from 50 to 100.
Calculate the MPC, right? So yeah, you
Yes.
can do that. So you can do the change in C over the change in Y. So current consumption minus initial consumption divided by current income minus the initial income. What answer have you found?
Two.
You found 2.
Yes.
Okay, so let me just try to. Okay, anybody with a different answer? So Sydney has said consumption. What's the change in consumption? We said 50 to 70.
That's 100. You divide by 50.
I said that income has increased from what to what?
Income was increased from 300 to 400.
Okay, so the change is 100. Then on top, what did I say about change in consumption? Consumption changed from
From 50 to 100.
50 to 100.
Yes.
I'm
Okay,
finding 2 as well.
all right. So if you're finding 2, it's wrong. Why? Because the MPC is always below. It's okay. Let that be the second one. So if you're finding 2, then it means you have put income on top. Remember, when you're calculating the gradient, it's changing y, isn't it? The change in the y-axis divided by the change in the x-axis, isn't it? So what is your change in your y? Your change in y is your consumption. Remember, these are just abbreviations that you're using here. So consumption is on top. So you have swapped them. So consumption is the one.
So it's supposed to be the other way around.
Yes, because remember, consumption is the one on your y-axis, and income is on the is in the x-axis, isn't it? So it has to be change in consumption as a result of a change in income. So it's change in C over change in Y, according to what we have here on the screen. I've highlighted this. This is the formula for the MPC. It's change in C over change in Y. But like I said, instead of you trying to memorize it, I said draw the X or Y plane. On the Y-axis, I want you to put consumption there. On the X-axis, put income, which is being represented by the letter Y. Okay, Mary, tell them yes. I've sent her the money. Mary. All right. So what do we find? Our gradient is from grade 12. It's changing the y-axis. What's on the y-axis? It's consumption. So that's why we're putting C. Then divided by the x-axis. What's there? It's y, which is income. So you need to say change in y. That's the MPC. And what have we found now? Ndinawe, what have you found?
0.5.
0.5.
Yes, 0.5. And that brings us to the next point here that is now on the slide when it's talking about this. So when we see this, the MPC, you can see on top here, right? Here, what I've highlighted. The A is always greater than 0, okay, for the consumption. And then B is between what? 0 and 1. Meaning showing us the MPC, the highest number it can attain is a 1. The lowest number it can attain is a 0. So it's always between 0 and 1. You cannot get an MPC that is above 1. So if you find an MPC 10 or 2, anything above 1, that's wrong. MPC is always between 0 and 1. And what does that represent? Remember, the MPC is the gradient. So it shows us, so I just wanted to write this down. It's not in your notes. So the MPC shows us how consumption changes. How consumption changes when income changes. That's what the gradient shows. So the gradient of every line shows us how the y-axis changes.
Can you say that again?
Okay, so I said the MPC shows us how consumption changes when income changes. How consumption changes when income changes. So when you're writing down this formula, write it down the way that I've told you through that definition. That's the way I want you to write it. Or MPC shows me how consumption changes when income changes. So when you're seeing this, don't say, no, change in this divided by change in this. I don't want you to swatila them. So let it be that you're going to write what? All right. So what you're going to have here is the change in consumption over the change in income. All right.
Mr. Duncan, are you presenting something?
Yes, I'm sharing my screen. I believe you can see it.
No, apart from the same handouts. I don't know if you're writing something.
No. I was just referring from the same. You can see the consumption on my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so I was saying that I want you to write, you define the MPC as it shows us. All right, so is it okay? Okay, because this is showing me that I'm going to run out of time. So it means I'll need to cut this class, then I send you the other link just now. So that I can keep this recorded part, so that I can finish up the next part. So the consumption function the MPC shows us how consumption changes and income changes. So for example, when income increases by 2, okay, how does my consumption increase? Does it increase also by 2 or by 4 or by what? The MPC will tell you. Okay, so if it's 0.5, 0.5 is just a representation of 50%. Okay, so you know that 0.5 in percentage form is just 50%. All right, so let me just quickly cut this class. Then in 5 minutes, I just send another link for the other class because I think it's going to cut just now. So I'm sending in the group just right now because Zoom cuts after 40 minutes. All
Was
right.
there another class before this?
Yes, I'm sending just now. So let me
Okay.
just cut this one, then I send you the other link.
Okay, sir.
Okay.